We'll see if they can do it at Notre Dame, man. This is the biggest game of the weekend. Number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame. A matchup between two top 10 teams. Dalton, what are you looking for the most in this game?
Man, oh man, there's a lot. There's a lot. The big thing is that Ohio State last year, their front seven, for all the stars that there were on their offense, and C.J. Stroud and everything, Harrison, Ibuka and everything like. Ohio State's front seven was the dominant unit in the game last year. They only gave up 76 yards rushing, and right now they return Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, who are both among edge rushers in the top 5 in pass rushing grade. Right, so you've got a dominant defensive front. You've got Chambers and you've got Eichenberg at linebacker. It's Ohio State's front seven outside of the receivers, because their receivers, obviously with Harrison and Buka and all that, they're superstars. But their front seven is the next most dominant unit on their team.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
It made the difference last year. Look, everybody's talking about McCord and can he go in there and be great? He doesn't have to be great. Look, C.J. Stroud wasn't great last year. He had 223 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he played a clean game. They don't need McCord to be great. They need McCord to be clean in a similar manner that Stroud was, because this front seven, now Notre Dame's offensive lines are always great, right? Joe Alt and the gang, and all that, but Sam Hartman is not good under pressure. Yep. I think he's got I think you have the numbers on the clean versus pressure. I think it's somewhere in the 40s under pressure. If you get to him, he's got issues. And Ohio State's D-line and their front seven, they were the dominant unit last year, and they really didn't lose much this year. They're loaded up front, and Notre Dame's going to need balance. I still don't think they want Hartman to get in obvious passing situations, not against this team. I mean, there's other days. The NC State game was a different animal, but this Ohio State front is what's going to keep them in and winning football games.
I think it might be the best front seven in college football. I think it really might be, man. That defensive line might be the best in the country right now. I mean, they have 4 players on that defensive line that are in the top 150 prospects for PFF on our big board right now. And Tuimoloau, Michael Hart Jr., Jack Sawyer, and Tyleik Williams. And right now they've only given up 2.3 rushing yards per attempt. And you mentioned that Sam Hartman grade. Sam Hartman, 91 grade when kept clean. That drops to a 44.3 when he's under pressure. So if Ohio State can get pressure on Sam Hartman, that could be a problem. And right now, Ohio State has an 87.3 pass rushing grade as a team that leads all Power 5 schools right now. But Notre Dame on offense has Joe Alt, who hasn't given up a pressure on over 100 pass blocking snaps so far this season. Yeah, he's one of the 4 tackles in the country who's done that. And also Blake Fisher is an NFL guy, probably at right tackle. The Notre Dame offensive line, though, otherwise is not great on the interior. So I think that could be a problem for them. And also, what could help Notre Dame in this game, they have the nation's best receiving grade, 88.6 so far. And Audric Estime is the nation's leading rusher and also the highest graded running back in the country, too, at 92.6. So that could be a problem. I don't think Notre Dame last year had a running back like Audric Estime. That's probably why their run game really struggled against Ohio State. This year could be a little bit better with how well Estime is running the ball right now.
Yeah, for sure. And look, they're going to need everything they can get. Look, Ohio State's deep. They have 12 players on their defense who've played 50 snaps and have a grade above 70. They're just absolutely loaded. Their coverage grade is somewhere in the top 5, if not number 1. I think it might be number 1. The one thing Notre Dame has to do, you got to stay on schedule. You got to stay on script. Do not force anything, especially late in the play, over 2.5 seconds against this Ohio State team. This is as good a defense as they've had in a few years. The last 2 or 3 years, their defense has not been up to this standard. Ohio State's going to win games on defense, and Sam Hartman, look, if you get in trouble, throw it away, punt the ball, make McCord go 80 yards. Because Ohio State's offense, it's just an entire. You have to keep yourself in the game more than anything against Ohio State. Hartman, I don't think he has the best reputation in big games. He looked great against NC State, but for Notre Dame, NC State's not a big game. This is the big game, right? And he's got to be cool under pressure. In moments, we talked about like with Shedeur and with Drew Aller, when those two get in trouble, they make the safe play.
Yeah.
I think Hartman's going to have to make the safe plays in this game. Be really, really patient. If you force anything in this game, you'll be at a disadvantage again. And last year, we've seen it now, especially now that he's at Alabama. Last year, Notre Dame walking in with Tyler Buckner was at a disadvantage starting the game. And Hartman cannot do the same by turning the football over under pressure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, I we've talked about that before. I think Notre Dame's offense is going to be has a lot of problems right now facing this Ohio State defense, who, like you mentioned, right now they do have the number one coverage grade, at least in the Power 5, at a 92.4. And the other thing I want to talk about, Dalton, quickly before we get to our predictions is Kyle McCord. And I think this is a big storyline for me. Is time for him to prove it, man, because the raw stats for Kyle McCord look great, but I don't think he's done too well when you look at the advanced metrics. He has a 65.1 passing grade, you see right there, 4 big-time throws, and 4 turnover-worthy plays. And as you see at the bottom line right there, he's played a weak competition so far. They play Youngstown State, which is an FCS school, and then 2 programs that are outside the top 80 of PFF power rankings in Indiana and Western Kentucky. And keep in mind, this guy has the number 1 receiving core in the country with or maybe the 2 best receivers in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mecca Egbuka. A really good run game to rely on, too. Now you're facing Notre Dame. Notre Dame so far this season has the lowest passer rating allowed in the country, 50.9 so far this season, and also has only allowed a 50% completion percentage. I think Notre Dame's secondary is good enough in this game that Harrison and Egbuka, like they've done in the first 3 games, they won't be able to win on talent alone. I think McCord has to make some big boy throws in this game in order for Ohio State's offense to get anything going against the Fighting Irish right now.
So McCord's a fun watch on tape right now. That's you're looking for progress, and you mentioned it. Egbuka and Harrison last year had 90 and 56 yards in this game. Okay, look, Notre Dame's going to play good defense. They just do. McCord is a fun watch because I'll say this: you do see progress. And now it's little by little. What he looks like is a guy who's getting his first legitimate action in college football, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I think his skill set, he's not quite as accurate yet, but his skill set's not that different from Stroud. Here's what's going to happen is if he gets good protection and he throws with conviction, okay, this is a big thing. You really see there's times when he's unsure of a throw, you can see his whole delivery change.
Yeah.
There are times, the big thing for him right now, and what's going to be interesting in this game, there are times where he's a little nervous to throw the ball into tight windows. And the windows are going to be tight in this game, even with Harrison and Egbuka and Stover and everything else they have. The windows are going to be tight against teams like this. He's a little nervous to throw the ball in tight windows. When those 4 big time throws you mentioned, when he's confident in the throw he's making, even in a tight window, he can make big throws. He reminds me actually a lot of Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. If he's protected and he steps in and he's sure of it, he's got a cannon too, man. McCord, he put a ball over the top of Harrison, I think 2 weeks ago, that only maybe 10 quarterbacks in the country can throw. It's just he's got it. He's got the talent in there. He doesn't move a ton. A lot like Stroud and a lot like Van Dyke, who I just mentioned. He doesn't move a ton. They get him going in the boot game a little, but they want him to get rid of the ball quickly. He has to throw with good footwork, and he has to be sure of what he's doing. If I'm an Ohio State coach, and I know this is more field than analytics and the things we do, I tell him, I'm like, listen, man, just be yourself and be confident. When he steps into throws, he makes some terrific throws. And when he's unsure, you can see it in his delivery. His delivery looks different when he is unsure of a throw he wants to make. And the big thing right now is that Ohio State's pass protection is spectacular. McCord also I got with a 38.6 grade under pressure. He's not going to play well under pressure. He doesn't move well, and he kind of throws off the back foot a little bit. He gets a little nervous. But Ohio State's only allowing a 12.2% pressure rate, which is unbelievable. If you're in the low 20s, that's great. If you're at 12.2, guys barely being touched. Now, it's going to be a problem with Notre Dame having 2 of the 10 best interior rushers in the country in Howard Cross and Riley Mills. You got Ohio State brings it from the edges. Notre Dame brings it from the inside.
Yeah.
And those pocket quarterbacks they always used to talk about with Tom Brady, you get the inside rush going on them and you make them move off the spot. it's a problem. So it's a matchup problem. Ohio State's pass protection is a big thing in this game, but McCord, you can see the progress. It's slower. We've seen just so many freshman quarterbacks in recent years come in and just boom, just tear it up. Aller and Trevor Lawrence and I'm probably missing however many guys, but we've seen this trend of freshman quarterbacks who are just ready to play. And Kyle McCord, it's a work in progress. It is. They have to work through, and they have to win games like this through the growing pains. They do. They're there, but he's capable of doing what they need him to do. The big thing for him, and you mentioned it with the weapons, lean on the weapons, man.
Yeah.
Just make the easy throws. Lean on. You've got the best receiver in the country. You might have the second best receiver in the country. Travion Henderson's great. Mm-hmm. Cade Stover's an excellent player. Lean on those guys. Don't try to fit balls in windows that are impossible. Don't try to elevate their play. Doesn't need to be elevated. They just need the football.
Yeah.
Right. So they're perfectly. Look, McCord is capable of playing a clean game, a similar game. Like I said, last year, Stroud out 220 and 2 touchdowns. I think McCord is perfectly capable of playing a similar game. If Ohio State's pass protection holds up, which it should reasonably, right? They have a really good offensive line, and McCord, I see a confidence thing. I see a guy who needs reps, and I see a guy who sometimes just gets nervous throwing the ball down the field into tighter windows, and the windows are going to be tight in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring up really quickly, because I agree with you. Ohio State's offensive line has been spectacular so far, but entering the season, this was a major question mark for me, and I know how great they've played so far, but again, they played subpar competition. Now I'm interested in seeing how it goes, because I think Ohio State's O-line was, to me, that was their kryptonite going into the season, and I've been really impressed by them so far. But again, I want to see it against Notre Dame now, and I'm excited to see it this week. But ultimately, Dalton, obviously there's great matchups. This is the biggest game of the weekend, and what should be one of the biggest weekends in college football, maybe history. Ultimately, who comes out in this massive showdown?
I'm going to believe in McCord, and I'm going to take the Buckeyes. I think 31-27 sounds right. You got two good defenses, but you also have two teams with playmakers. So it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be back and forth. You're going to see moments on both sides of the ball for both teams where the momentum shifts. But I kind of like, and I think it was good for McCord that he got the 3 easier games first.
Yeah.
Put some plays on tape, even put some mistakes on tape, right? The first game against Indiana, there was a throw back across the grain on a rollout that was intercepted. That was just awful. That's one you don't want to put on tape twice. So get some of those nerves out of the way, play in those first 3 games. Get yourself, it's a soft 3-0. It is, but that's why they're playing Notre Dame out of conference. Now it's go time, right? I think he's capable, if protected, of doing the things that they need him to do. He's not ready to carry them, right? If they fall behind in this game, it's gonna get hard. Now they have the weapons where they could come back, and maybe that jolts him. Maybe that sense of urgency would jolt him into success. But I think Ohio State's front 7,
yeah,
until we see further, and from what I saw last year, is still the dominant unit in this game. I think it's going to be tighter than last year. Ohio State was clearly the better team last year, right?
Yeah.
Notre Dame's quarterback problems and their issues up front against this front. It was just, they just couldn't score. They couldn't finish drives. They couldn't run the ball. I think Ohio State wins, like I said, 31-27. I think the weapons in big moments, he has to allow the weapons to play. He doesn't have to elevate them. They can elevate him. You mentioned the traditional numbers look really good. Well, that's how it happens. This is those guys elevate you, right? And Ohio State needs balance. They got to run the ball with Henderson, and they don't have, with Stroud the last couple of years and with McCord, they've kind of gotten used to this thing where they don't have any quarterback run game. So it's a little bit harder, but they still need to find it. They need to bang their head against the wall a little bit. They need to get to the edges. Notre Dame's a lot better on the inside than they are on the edges. If they can get to the outside, even some jet sweeps and things like that will help them. But I think the weapons and having Marvin Harrison out there a second time against this team, and I think Ohio State, I have a feeling their defensive front is again the best unit in this game.
Yeah. So we're going to disagree once again. I have Notre Dame coming out on top at home. I have them winning 30-27. So basically almost exactly the same score as you, just flipped. I think Kyle McCord is going to make a few costly mistakes in this game. And I think the big difference, like you mentioned last year, was that Tyler Buchner was playing quarterback for Notre Dame. And for a good amount of that game, I know Ohio State pulled away at the end. Good amount of that game, Notre Dame was still in it. You got Sam Hartman in there now, who is one of the best quarterbacks, maybe one of the best quarterbacks they've had, maybe since like Brady Quinn, I would say. It's going to be tough for Ohio State, man, and I think that Notre Dame is going to force McCord into a few mistakes with that secondary they got, and I think Notre Dame, for the first time in 87 years, is going to beat Ohio State.